Hey MMA fans, Caged Minds, your host Micah Frankel, here to do our recap of Bellator 66. We have predicted on 5 fights on the main card. We'll give you a recap on those 5 fights. Start off in the lightweight semifinals. First one was Brent Weidman versus Thiago Michel. We had predicted for Michel to win with his more accurate striking, picking his opponent apart. In his last fight, Michel, he was able to totally negate the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu game of high-ranking black belt Nazar Rey, so we thought that Brent Weidman's grappling would have no effect on Michel and that Michel would be able to win the striking, thus winning a unanimous decision. As we go to the action for the first 2 rounds, on the feet, Michel's landing more accurately, picking his opponent apart, getting the better of the striking. Weidman keeps taking the fight to the ground, got 2 takedowns in the first round, 2 more in the second round, does little to no damage with those takedowns, did land some very good knees at one point, but no visual damage. As we come out for the third round, Weidman, his right eye is nearly closed from the punches and strikes of Thiago Michel. Michel, I guess he felt he was running the first 2 rounds on the damage, didn't seem overly aggressive, kind of coasted through the third round. We go to the judges' scorecard, and the takedowns prevail. Brent Weidman wins the fight with the takedowns, getting the first 2 rounds primarily, 29-28. He lost the third round striking, but Brent Weidman, with the split decision, does advance to the Bellator Season 6 lightweight finals. To see who his opponent would be was a matchup with Rick Hahn versus Lloyd Cupcake Woodard. Both of these men are aggressive. We had predicted after a long, grueling battle for a TKO in the third round to leave Rick Hahn victorious. He slowed down the pace. He tried to elude the aggressiveness of Lloyd Woodard. Did a good job of that in the first round. In the second round, too aggressive for himself. Woodard runs in. The collectiveness and the patience of Rick Hahn prevails, landing a big right, dropping Woodard, falling him down with some hammer fists on the ground. The ref steps in, and Rick Hahn is victorious, like we had predicted. TKO, second round, not the third round like we had said. So we know that our Bellator Season 6 lightweight finals will be between Brent Weidman and Rick Hahn. The two were very cordial to each other and just would like to see who the better man was as they faced off in the cage afterwards. Now we move on to the middleweight semifinals. First one was Michael Falcão versus Slava Vasilevsky. We had predicted Falcão to win. He had a better Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu game. I thought that would translate into also with his bigger, thicker size, getting the takedowns when he needed to, pulling out a close split decision. What happened is that the boxing that I was very worried about, because the tight, straight, crisp punches of Vasilevsky were very effective for the first 2 rounds. He also got top control, was pushing, but in the second round we did have a transition in the last 2 minutes where Falcão was able to sweep to the top, land some of his own ground and pound. In the third round, Falcão comes out ultra aggressive, moving forward, definitely won the striking game, took that third round. We go to the judges' scorecards. Most people, from what it seemed, felt that Vasilevsky had the first 2 rounds, but in a 29-28 unanimous decision, it goes the other way, and Michael Falcão is our first middleweight finalist. So we were right on that prediction, unanimous decision, instead of the split decision we had called for. Now we go to that second middleweight semifinal, and it was originally between Bruno Santos and Brian Rogers. Bruno Santos injured, so now we go to Brian Rogers versus late replacement Andreas Spang. Figured that still Brian Rogers' power, his determinedness, his gas tank would have to be bigger than a man coming in on 6 days' notice. Still, we'll go with Brian Rogers to win with the second round TKO as we predicted versus Bruno Santos. Well, we were right on a second round TKO in a fight that was very reminiscent, I feel, of some of the feelings. I was starting to have them build up in me like people did during the Pat Curran, Joe Warren fight. Every time that Rogers was connecting on Spang, it looked like he was really affecting him. Spang was in pain, trying to run throughout some of the shots. But this is mixed martial arts. The fight was not stopped, and all of a sudden, with a looping combination, Brian Rogers doing a very bad job of striking and then bringing his hands back up to a defensive position, throws a strike, doesn't bring him back. Sprang lands a giant left hook, a diving right fist reminiscent of Leono Machida versus Thiago Silva. Lands on Rogers. He throws one more hammer fist, and the ref dives in. Brian Rogers is down and out, and a tremendous comeback from Andreas Spang, who was getting beat up pretty heavily until that point. So now we have Michael Falcao and Andreas Spang in the finals of the middleweight season 6 tournament as the two men went to face off in the cage. Same style that Weidman and Hahn did. I guess Andreas Spang doesn't like people getting too close to his face. Falcao got nose to nose. Spang pushes, almost creates a melee. Thankfully, the Bellator people jump in and avoid a strike force situation. Kudos to them for keeping the fighters under control. Andreas Spang, I'd be happy to never see him back in Bellator. That's an incident at the weigh-ins, an incident at the event. That is not professionalism, and I just don't like him just from those two incidences. And now we're still left to talk about the main event. Eddie Alvarez, the former Bellator champion, getting his rematch with current Dream lightweight champion Shinya Aoki. We had predicted a unanimous decision win for Alvarez, using movement, using the jab, using the uppercut, staying out of the grappling exchanges. Alvarez started off the fight using a lot more movement, did land a body shot. Aoki, as his tendency, is diving for takedowns in any realm possible, was not able to get them. Alvarez closes the distance, lands a right uppercut, drops Aoki. After a second to wonder if he should go to the ground, he dives to the ground, unleashes a 15-punch combination, and the ref dives in, separating the two. A stoppage in the first round. Eddie Alvarez, TKO victory, still proving he's one of the top lightweights in the world. Definitely is fighting with Gilbert Melendez for being the top lightweight outside of the UFC. So for our predictions, we were 3-2 on Caged Minds. There were some close, questionable decisions. Andreas Spang doesn't make a great first impression to me in the Bellator community. Eddie Alvarez looked amazing, left the cage with a lasting message, shouting out to Bajor and Rebney, pay me. Well, we'll see what happens. Rumor is Eddie will have one more fight in the Bellator umbrella before we see if he's a free agent and what realm that takes on. This has been Caged Minds. Uncage the warrior within yourself. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, and have a good night. Watch MMA. It's the best sport in the world.